We have our buddy Chip Roy with us, Congressman Roy from Texas, one of the superstars in the House. Chip, how are you, my buddy?
I'm doing great, my brother. How are you? You healthy? You well?
I think so. I'm doing well enough anyway. Let me ask you something. I wanted to get your sense of things. I haven't heard. You see what's going on in the Senate? We have the majority there now. The House, we've got a bare majority. Obviously, we have a president. He's appointing his cabinet. What is your feel for what's taking place?
Look, I think what we're seeing out of the president is what we expected. Disruption, honoring his commitment to challenge the status quo, to finish his commitment made in 2016 to drain the swamp. And we are seeing that today with the appointment of RFK Jr., which I applaud. I mean, look, you and I don't agree with him on everything, but, man, that's a guy that gets it. He gets what needs to be done with the big corporate cronyism and all the stuff with pharma and insurance and the big hospital corporations and the revolving door with the CDC and the NIH. And, you know, Matt Gaetz, a disruptor, a guy that wants to take on the Department of Justice. We've got, you know, a number of different appointments that that are giving us a whole lot of hope. Senate and the House, I mean, look, we have thin majorities, 53 in the Senate. We're not sure yet in the House, probably 221. And we got 3 that the president's plucked off. I think Speaker Johnson has appropriately told the president, you need to stop plucking House members, or we're going to have a pretty thin majority. But
you won't have a majority by the time he's done.
I know he's got to stop it. It's enough. But you know, these are some good folks. Michael Walt's a good guy. Matt obviously is going to be do a good job at the attorney in the DOJ. But the thing is, we had good meetings this week. I mean, look, you know me. I'm a bit of a skeptic about the powers that be. Mike is a good friend. He's a good man. But I want to see, the leadership necessary to challenge the guys that don't want us to be able to, do what we need to do with the rules votes and the tough votes we have. And so we had some pretty good agreements yesterday. We set aside, some of these guys wanted to come after us with these punishment rules, and we got that all put away. We agreed to a motion to vacate it.
Oh, they wanted to come after you?
Yeah, because occasionally last year we would take down a rule when they were trying to spend money we didn't have or pass something down, and we say, look, guys, you're gonna kick us off of committees? We said, no, we're not going to do that. And credit to Mike, credit to some of our friends in the moderate Main Street world, like my friend Dusty Johnson from South Dakota. Don't agree with them on a lot. I agree with them on a lot, but I don't agree with them all the time. But we sat down, we figured out how to get it done, and that's what we got to do, right? We got to lead. I mean, there's no time now to screw around. And so, we're going to hold everybody accountable between now and the first of the year. But we got to build out the agenda, get reconciliation done, get ready to secure the border, cut spending, get the tax policy right, root out the bureaucracy. And I like the field. Tulsi, RFK, Matt, these are, oh, and by the way, getting Pete Hegseth over at DOD.
Yeah,
I just saw a report today that a bunch of the DEI folks are saying, oh, we're going to quit because of Pete Hegseth. I'm like, God, make my day. Good. Quit. Go. Leave.
Exactly. Why do they always threaten us? Just leave.
Right. They just get out of your cushy job. They won't leave. They're getting paid, $150,000 to do stupid crap that, undermine our military. What we got to do is get rid of them when they don't leave. And I think Pete Hegseth and I think President Trump, and there's a bunch of us willing in Congress. But the real trick's going to be, Mark, we've got to have Republicans who are willing to risk their election certificates. Like I heard, my biggest worry, I heard people today talking about, well, it's a majority if we can keep it. If we start trying to play prevent defense to, quote, keep our majority, we'll lose the majority. We got to go lead. We got to get out there and do what they sent us here to do. And if we do that, I think we'll expand the majority.
And further to your point, they didn't win the majority. Trump won in a wave and helped us win a majority. I mean, this stuff, and many of the people who benefited from that were not even Trump supporters for the longest time. If we go by the way of Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, we go the way of some of these Republicans, particularly in the Senate, who've been around a long time and did not have to face the voters this time, we will lose. And we will lose, and the Democrats will win. And they will see weakness because, as you know and I know, they're in the shadows right now, plotting sabotage, plotting ways to undermine one cabinet nominee after another to undermine Donald Trump's agenda so they can run and say, see, he promised this and he didn't deliver. They're out there trying to kneecap you guys, are they not?
You're exactly right. That's 100% what's happening. And we've got to play ball, play hard ball. And look, we've got to, take a page out of the Democrat playbook. They constantly work to undermine President Trump. We've got to make sure that we're going to take them on head on, and we got to deliver on the agenda. Remember back in 2008 when Obama was elected, Democrats came in and they knew that they would get handed an exit when they passed Obamacare. They knew they would risk the majority, and that presidents lose their majorities in their first term often. But they did it. They did it anyway because their long view was they wanted to federalize health care. We have got to go on offense, and I think the American people will be with us. I actually think we gain majorities, we win strength if we lead. And you got to take on what the Democrats are going to be doing. Look, what you see what happened, a little slightly different topic, but related in Bucks County in Pennsylvania today.
We've been talking about that.
They're literally trying to steal. Yeah, it's crazy. And but they do that, and we've got to be mindful of that. And that's why having Gates at the Department of Justice, he'll go after that stuff.
Well, here's what I want to see. I want to see some systemic changes here. I want to see limits to the growth of the budget tied to the percentage of the increase in the gross domestic product. This is an old Milton Friedman proposal 40, 50 years ago. He's exactly right. I like the penny plan, where we cut 1% each year so we can save our damn country financially. I like some of my ideas, quite frankly, in the Liberty Amendments. So, Chip, here's the thing. When I wrote Liberty and Tyranny, and you've read Liberty and Tyranny, at the end of the book I have a number of systemic proposals. The book was widely popular. The book, The Liberty Amendments, I have a number of proposals for systemic change. Every year we come and we yell about the budget, we yell about the debt. There are things, if we could pull ourselves together, at least unite behind and fight for them, win, lose, or draw, that would make reducing the debt and the yearly deficit relatively painless if something's put in place and has a systemic impact. Same with raising taxes. Same with the bureaucracy issuing regulations. The point is, we need to put in place our own, effectively, legislation or regulations to regulate the Leviathan. I just feel we need to start making that case.
I agree with you. First of all, as always, a great book. And yes, I did read it, and I need to read it again right now to refresh my memory. And you and I had a lot of similar ideas when we were talking about it at the time, but you got to have systemic change. You got to have transformational change. I believe that, not to repeat what we talked about before, that all of these great appointments by the president and what the president will do, they'll do a lot of great things. But remember how much damage the Democrats did when they came in through executive orders and by ignoring the law. We've got to put in literal, significant transformational change that will be, as you said, systemic. I like, look, there was a Rand Paul, the penny plan, I think they call it the nickel plan now because we're up to $36 trillion in debt. But there are ways that you can try to box in the, yes, the bureaucratic state, but also Congress itself, because you would have been pained, Mark, in the meeting today. I want to be all positive. We're moving in the right direction. A lot of good things happening. But you know how it works. We had lots of discussions today about our own conference rules as Republicans about ways to try to limit spending, how to box things in and say, look, so for example, I thought we shouldn't bring anything to the House floor that doesn't have a majority of Republican support. But there's pushback on that, right? We had different amendments that were offered to the rules to try to require that we put limits in place on how these big suspension bills get to the floor that would spend lots of money. And I walked everybody through what happened last year with all of the spending and how we had these things that were passed. We spent like almost $2 trillion, and we didn't even have votes and amendments on them. We've got to change the way we do business. And that's not exactly what you're talking about, but it's similar. We have to box these guys in. We've got to pass amendments to the Constitution if necessary. We need to make big broad strokes and set the mark real high and then deliver on it. We can do it. We can address spending. We can drive the price of health care down if we embrace what Robert and frankly what I've been talking about in healthcare freedom and inflation, with health savings accounts. We can actually get tax policy that will create growth, deregulate, get all the energy stuff. I saw Elon today said get rid of the EV tax credit, but he said get rid of all the stupid subsidies. He's right, right? We should get rid of all that stuff so we can systemically get this stuff back in the right place. But I need to brush off your book and put forward some of those solutions because they're great ones.
And there's other things too. You talk about healthcare. Do you know the federal government limits how many doctors can actually come into the private sector, into the medical community every year? Did you know that?
Yep.
That is ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
Right, because some pinheads were saying we've got too many doctors in the field, so they limited it, which is absurd because now we're struggling to get doctors in the field. And we can actually the most.
But let's go through a couple of these, Chip. Let's go through a couple of these. For instance, we don't know literally today where chain migration comes from.
Right.
Where did chain migration? People believe it came out of the Social Security Administration, or actually more to the point, that somebody who comes here, gives birth, that baby is an American citizen. Where does that come from? It's not in the Constitution. It's not in any statute. Where does that come from? You know, nobody really knows. Again, they think it came out of the bureaucracy. We got to start challenging this stuff. This is ridiculous. We build a country based on stuff like this. Look, the left is great at destroying the boundaries to the power of government and their own power. That's what they do. We got to get good at putting boundaries in place that restores limited government and their power. And don't get me wrong, you're one of the greats out there who talks about this stuff. We got to be talking about not just big ideas, but when we have a majority, I don't care if it's a majority of one. We got to start pushing these fundamental changes to give us our liberty back and to give us our country back and make them go on defense.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, you know, if you think about the big ticket items where the most damage is done, you just brought up one, which is border security and immigration. We need, again, to be talking about the bigger ideas and the bigger points about how many people have been dumped into the United States in complete violation of the law. So, but, you know, fix that. Like, fix the law so that they can't do that again. Box them in. The healthcare stuff, like you said. I mean, yeah, and it did, like, yeah, so they limit the doctors. Well, they've also, it wasn't just Obamacare, Mark. I mean, all of the alphabet soup of the regulatory state, EMTALA and HIPAA and all the things, that has all driven up the price of healthcare such that people can't afford it. We can't go to the doctor of our choice. Insurance companies lock us down. The insurance companies make crap tons of money. The big hospital corporations make crap tons of money, all in collusion with government cronies. So root that out. We don't have a free market healthcare system. We don't. We have.
Well, Chip, let's be honest about this. Medicare and Medicaid take up almost 40% of our health care provisions, and they drive the prices. And they drive the prices for drugs. They drive the prices. And when you're giving illegal immigrants absolute 100% free health care, somebody has to pay for it. And that's you and me. The whole thing is upside down. And a lot of it has to do with government actions here. Again, as you instinctively point out, we got to get back to a market system, a private system. But when the government controls these things, it's a bit... You know what I think, and maybe I'm off. You know how the House operates or doesn't. I think there really ought to be a group. Maybe it's the Freedom Caucus that gets together, that looks at these ideas, not just one off here and there, that looks fundamentally at things that we need to do across the board to limit the bureaucracy, to expand opportunity to do these things that can create serious systemic ways, maybe an amendment to the Constitution, maybe not. We know how hard it is, but you got to fight for these things and put them on the floor. I really think that it ought to get out of think tanks, get out of my books, get out of your books, and get on the floor of the House of Representatives.
I couldn't agree more, Mark. And I think this is the kind of thing, you know, again, you might not to repeat, you mentioned like the penny plan, that's just one idea. But the various things you could do to structurally change the way things work, we need to put them on the floor. You know, we get these tired things to go put a, balanced budget amendment on the floor, the term limits. Like, okay, great, I support those things. Put them on the floor. But let's actually try to transform the bureaucracy and, put limits in place. Like, and I know that when the frickin' Constitution was adopted, there were only 4 people in the cabinet, right? Yeah. There, what was it? The Secretary of War, the Attorney General, the Secretary of Treasury, and the Secretary of State. And now we have not only a whole bunch of other cabinet officials for ridiculous departments like the Department of Education, but we have all these off-book things like the Fed. The Fed is a whole other thing. We've allowed just to completely become its own animal, bankrupt our country, print money, and now they're destroying our balance sheet in addition to what Congress is doing. And then if you go to like what we're going to face, not to change topics, but it's all related, we're going to be facing abuse by litigation. When you know what happens when the president starts to try to do deportations, we're going to have them lawyer up. They're going to go straight into court and get nationwide injunctions to be able to say, no, these guys have status, right? They were released under parole. But they were not. They don't have legitimate status. They were illegitimately released in violation of law into the United States. So don't accept that premise, right? Get rid of the people who came here and were gotaways, right? They absconded. Get rid of the criminals, but also get rid of the people who are released, given notices to appear when they were done so illegitimately. Don't be afraid. Fight these things head on.
All right, brother. We count on you. You're a great patriot, and my audience really adores what you support and what you advance and so forth. I do think it is a new day, and we cannot allow the Democrats and their media to sabotage this president. He needs some room to do what he wants to do. And I've told people, if you don't like Gates, you don't like this one or that one, it really doesn't matter. This is his team. This is his team. He gets to make the choice, and if he's going to succeed, he needs the opportunity to pull together people he wants to pull together. In the Senate, I'm already hearing some of these Republicans who didn't face the voters saying, well, I don't like this guy, I don't like that guy. Well, guess what? You weren't elected president. I know you have advice and consent, but don't use it to cripple him. They don't do it on the Democrat side. I mean, for God's sakes, Chip, they put up Tim Walz. Is there anyone worse than him? I don't care. For vice president, any cabinet position? Has there ever been a bigger fraud and a freak than him?
I mean, look at what they've done over the Defense Department. Look what they did with Mayorkas. Mayorkas is a walking criminal who literally endangered Americans. Look at the people that they put in power. Look at Garland, who abused the law in the FACE Act, where you've got pro-lifers who are put in jail for exercising both their religious beliefs and their free speech rights. That's what they did. They were criminal. They went after us. They weaponized government against us. And now they're complaining because some of our guys are maybe a little too libertarian or independent, or they might not go along to get along. Guess what? We want that. I'm glad I'm watching Moderna and Pfizer stocks tanking on the news of Robert F. Kennedy. They've been all running fat and happy, making money off of corporate cronyism.
Well, we disagree on that because a lot of people have mutual funds that invest in that stuff. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, that's true. But those markets, that'll rebound, Mark. That'll all come back. They're reacting.
It will.
They're reacting out of fear. What we want is legitimate efforts. Like my life was saved, as you know, by medicine that a pharmaceutical company created. God bless them for it. But they shouldn't get corporate crony handouts, and they shouldn't be set up to make a whole bunch of money because the government is, giving them a fast track to getting rich.
By the way, you're sounding a lot like Bernie Sanders right now.
Well, no, because this is the revolving door.
Don't get me wrong, Chip. I'm not a corporatist. I've never liked them. I've never supported them. It's not my point.
Yep.
They don't like competition. I got it. Right. But the biggest problem I have is the government. It's the biggest monopoly on the face of the earth. And until we solve that, I don't think we're going to solve a hell of a lot. But anyway, go ahead.
Well, but on this point, because it's important, these big insurance companies who knew what they were doing when they colluded with Obama to, cripple the market, and they're minting money over the last 15 years, boxing you and I from getting the doctor of our choice, they need to be put on notice. The extent to which big hospital corporations are minimizing competition in some of these places around the country, they need to be put on notice that we're going to restore freedom, restore competition, restore markets, and we're going to get the government out of the business of regulating so that they get these narrow areas where they can make lots of money and restrict our ability to get the products of our choice. I think that's more about free enterprise and capitalism and competition and ending the corporate crony, revolving door with the government, that has been strangling our ability to get the health care of our choice. And frankly, it's across a whole lot of different industries. But the bottom line is, give President Trump the room to run, whether it's RFK, whether it's Tulsi, whether it's Matt Gaetz, whether it's Pete Hegseth, who I think will do great work at the Pentagon. He's been putting together a really good team, and you're right. Let's let him run, and Congress needs to back him up, cut spending, do the tax policy, secure the border, and do reconciliation and get it all done.
You do make a good point. Now that you mention it. This Inova hospital system, you know, Northern Virginia, they're buying up every local hospital around here. There is that. There is that.
Right.
It's a good point.
It is. And look, I mean, antitrust gets complex, and you know more about it than I ever will. And, I kind of studied under the Bork theory. I don't really want government interfering. But the flip side is, we've got a whole lot going on here where competition is getting minimal. All the regional hospitals in my district are getting bought up. And I'm not sure that's good.
We love talking to you. You're great. Chip, thanks, buddy. Go at it.
God bless, Mark. Take care.
You too. Good man.